Agnes White Scott came into this world on August 25, 1907, or as she liked to say, 4 months before Christmas. She was the 13th child born to Robert and Lizzie Scott, who lived on a farm located several miles south of modern-day Mebane, North Carolina. Whenever she was asked about her birthday, Agnes liked to say that she knew 4 things about that day. It was a warm, sunny Sunday. Teddy Roosevelt was the president. A newspaper cost 5 cents, and a loaf of bread did too. Like all of her brothers and sisters, Agnes was born at home, in the house built in the 1850s by her grandfather, Henderson Scott. Her parents married in 1883 and moved in with Margaret Scott, Henderson's widow. Robert and Lizzie would go on to devote their lives to turning acres and acres of washed-out, depleted soil into the beautiful and prosperous Melville Farm. Agnes was named for 2 of her aunts, her father's sister Mamie White Scott and her mother's half-sister Agnes Johnston. In later years, Agnes revealed that she would have preferred to have been called Mary Agnes, but by then it was too late to change her name. Agnes enjoyed being the baby of the house for several years, until Robert and Lizzie's last child, a boy, was born in 1911. They named the new baby Anderson Hughes Scott, after one of Lizzie's uncles. Lizzie passed away in 1914 when Agnes was 7, and her younger brother was only 2. Robert was devastated by the loss of his wife, who was only 48 years old at the time of her death. He sent the younger children to stay with relatives in Mebane until his sister, Mamie White Scott, one of the aunts for whom Agnes was named, moved home to help with the children. Mamie adjusted well to her new role as aunt in residence, and by all accounts was for the rest of her life a loving and helpful influence on her nieces and nephews. In December of 1915, Robert paid a visit to his former mother-in-law to announce that he was getting married again. He explained that his heart was in his home, and he was anxious to provide his children with a stepmother. His intended was Ella Anderson, an old family friend who had taught many of the Scott children. After the wedding, Robert gave up farming. He and Miss Ella moved into a small house located across from the home place. Around this time, he distributed his land to his children in the hope that they would continue farming. Many of them did. As Agnes was growing up, she often wondered what she would like to do with her life. At that time, the only careers open to girls like Agnes were teaching and nursing. In 1926, still not sure where her path in life would lead her, Agnes left home and enrolled at Flora MacDonald College, the same school her older sister Elizabeth had attended. After 2 years at Flora MacDonald, Agnes decided against becoming a school teacher. Her strict upbringing had not prepared her to deal with unruly children, and she was concerned that her lack of patience would result in a career filled with frustration. She informed her father that she was seriously considering going to nursing school. Robert was not entirely sure that Agnes, despite her compassionate nature, was cut out for nursing. When she told him of her decision, he thought about it for a while, and then he said to her, "Well, I want to tell you one thing. You're going to have to smile when you don't want to." Agnes decided to attend the Presbyterian Hospital School of Nursing in Philadelphia. Her older sister Elizabeth had gone to school at the University of Pennsylvania and was already working as a registered nurse. Agnes recalled that on her very first day, as she climbed the steps to the hospital, she was buttonholed by a nurse coming off the night shift. The woman asked Agnes if she was one of the new nursing students. When Agnes admitted that she was, the woman told her that if she knew what was good for her, she would turn around and go home. Agnes began her nurse's training in 1929, the year her father died, and she graduated 3 years later in 1932. After graduation, Agnes received a letter from her older sister Josephine, who was living in Raleigh with her own family. It was Josephine's desire that Agnes come home to North Carolina. Agnes decided, however, that it was time for her to make her own decisions. Being one of the youngest in a large family, she was keenly aware of her new independence and not willing to give it up. She would stay up north for the next 50 years. Agnes was devoted to her work, but when she was offered the chance to sail to Europe with her sister Elizabeth and 2 friends, she did not hesitate. The group traveled to England on a freighter and spent several weeks exploring the British Isles. One day, when they were in Scotland, they saw a procession of the royal family in their carriage. Perhaps buoyed up by this rare treat, the group decided to return home on a glorious new ship named the Queen Mary. Agnes would discover that being a private duty nurse was rewarding but arduous. Her job often required her to walk from one case to another. She would work a 12-hour shift, staying with one patient until they were well enough for her to move on. She tried to be helpful to her patients and their families when she could. This often meant washing a patient's hair, or rubbing their back, or even helping them clean out their medicine cabinet. Agnes loved her work and her independence, but she was frustrated by a chronic disability that was becoming increasingly worrisome. She knew she had problems with her hips even as a young person. When her stepmother Ella, who was a wonderful seamstress, had made clothes for her, she complained that Agnes did not seem to be able to stand up straight. Agnes would shift her weight from one hip to the other, making it hard to get the hem even. As time went by, the pain in her legs grew worse, but after visiting first her brother-in-law, the noted surgeon Dr. George Carrington, and then several clinics, no doctor could figure out what was wrong. She was at her wit's end when a friend recommended Dr. Moore, a surgeon located at Temple University. Agnes wrote to her brothers Ralph and Floyd to borrow $300 for her medical bills. She sent them a note saying she would pay each of them $10 per month until the debt was paid. They both sent her back the same note marked with the words, "Paid in full." Agnes said that she did not come from a kissing family, but if you needed help, they would come through for you. Dr. Moore was able to correct the situation, and after a long convalescence, Agnes was able to return to work. One day, Agnes received a telephone call from a man she did not know. He identified himself as Tom Rogers, the son of a sharecropper in Alamance County. Tom's father had attended Hughes Academy, a private school run by her grandfather, Samuel Wellwood Hughes. The Hughes family was very kind to Tom's father, allowing him to attend the school on a scholarship. Tom said he wished to repay this debt and wondered if there were anything he could do for Agnes or her family. That telephone call turned out to be a godsend for Agnes. She desperately wanted to stay in nursing, but working with patients was becoming too much for her. Tom Rogers' wife was employed by the school board of Newark, New Jersey. She offered to help Agnes to find a job as a school nurse. Agnes was thrilled at this opportunity, and soon she went to work at Central High School. What an exciting place Central must have been. The school offered a full complement of academic courses, as well as a robust array of vocational programs. The school housed a forge and a foundry, a sewing room, a sheet metal room, and a wood shop, as well as an auditorium seating 1,500 people. Agnes became a popular member of the staff at Central and was always mentioned in the last will and testament left behind by each graduating senior class. Agnes soon attracted the attention of a science teacher named Paul Haeseler, and after a few years the couple married. They moved to a house on Orchard Road in Piscataway, New Jersey. As the years passed, Agnes and Paul grew apart and divorced in 1960. Paul moved out of the house but remained at Central. Agnes stayed on at Orchard Road but decided to leave Central and go to work for a primary school. She enjoyed interacting with the young pupils and sent many of them home with hats and scarves she had crocheted herself. Despite her disappointment over the divorce, Agnes did not dwell on the past. She was good friends with all of her neighbors on Orchard Road and was a beloved member of the congregation of First Reformed Church, the oldest church in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Over time, she became an honorary grandmother to the Wanders family who lived next door. Every year, Agnes would return home to North Carolina on vacation and also for holidays. She would usually stay with her younger brother Hughes and his family. Despite living so far apart, she and her younger brother were very close and always enjoyed one another's company. She saw her extended family as often as she could, often providing free babysitting so the parents could go out for an evening. Despite her busy and fulfilling life, Agnes was aware that over the years she had missed out on a number of significant family events. In 1949, when her older brother Carr was sworn in as the 66th governor of North Carolina, he invited his brothers and sisters to a gathering at the Executive Mansion. Here we see the new governor with no fewer than 7 of his siblings, but not Agnes. However, she did attend family gatherings when she could. Here we see her at a birthday celebration for her oldest sibling, Josephine. Agnes admired the accomplishments of her brothers and sisters and often wished that she could achieve as much as they. All in all, Agnes longed to give back. The opportunity came after she moved back to Alamance County in the 1980s. Agnes had always wanted to do something significant for children. As a child, she was inspired by her kindly Aunt Agnes, one of the women for whom she was named. As she drove back from Piscataway with her great-nephew Steve Scott and his wife Linda, she was already thinking about her next project. Agnes learned that the Hawfields Child Care Center was in dire need of renovation. She asked her minister, Mr. Plexico, to come and see her after she settled in at Twin Lakes Retirement Community. Reverend Plexico helped her to outline a plan to raise money for the center. She had a basket ready to set out at social events and at church, and conducted a letter-writing campaign addressing appeals to the many people she had helped over the years. The campaign was successful, and she personally raised $33,000 for the center. One reason for moving back home to North Carolina when she did was that Agnes wanted to be healthy enough to spend time with her family and to make new friends. She loved her new home at Twin Lakes and joined a group that met in the gazebo every evening to discuss the topics of the day. On her 80th birthday, her friends gave her a surprise party, complete with a crown and a cake and a generous check made out to the child care center. Despite ever-increasing infirmities, Agnes made an effort to remain active and a part of her community. She stayed in touch with old friends and made many new ones. Agnes passed away in 2003 at the age of 96. In the months after her passing, her family received many letters from her old friends from up north. They recounted her many kindnesses and her willingness to help others. She will be remembered as an independent woman, a capable nurse, and a proud member of the Scott family of the Hawfields.